All right, good evening, everyone. We are back to a quick illustration for day 7 today. We will be looking at uh, brinjal. And let me just show you the brinjal that we have to look at today. This is our subject. It's a lovely purple, deep purple uh, brinjal. It has a nice glossy a shine to it at certain angles, and what is most important is that it is quite vibrant. And I was thinking about this a lot. I tried a lot of examples. I mean, in fact, I tried a couple of options with pencil colors on how I could best get this vibrance. So today I'm going to show you the technique that will allow you to get the most pigment out of your watercolor pencils. So let's get on with it. Yeah, and you can see what I do. So today we are going to look at using watercolor pencils in a slightly different manner, not as we were doing these few days where we were coloring directly in pencil. Today what we're going to do is we're going to just use a little bit of the pigment, which is essentially the lead of the color pencils. Now before we do that, let me use a generic purple color to sketch out our shape, which you can do in pencil, but I'll do it in purple and green color pencil, watercolor pencil itself. So let's just look at this. I hope my point is all right. Yes. So we have a body emerges a little outward. Nice and wide, going up. Yeah. And then above this, we will have a little bit of green. Now I'm going not with the sap green I see, but with a slightly different green. So there is this curve. It's as if there's an extension to this brinjal over here. So I will just draw in this much. Then there's this little piece that comes out this way. You see a very clear, curve. Then there's this little bit that comes out like this, and this kind of shapes the top of your brinjal. Then from the side you will see this little bit sticking out, and a little bit on this side as well. And then there's the basic the stem, part of the stem that connects onto the plant. Yeah, so that's it. Now ideally, if we were just wanting to fill this up in color, I would just take a purple color and start shading, and then we apply water to it the way we normally do, right? But today we're going to do something different. There is a difference in the intensity of your watercolor pencil when you use it directly on paper and then wet it, versus when you take just the pigment directly, wet the pigment, make it wet, like reconstituted, almost like watercolor paint, and then apply it like paint onto the picture, onto the paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I achieve this. So I will start with I have a few colors here. I have a few shades. See, so I'll start with a pinkish one first, and for this I just take a little bit. Either I can either take my sharpener and sharpen a little bit, but what happens then is the wood kind of mixes with the pigment. So to avoid that, I prefer just using cutter. It's pointed, and if you keep your pencil this way and just scrape off a little bit of the pigment like this. I'm putting this onto a plastic plastic container, so you can see it's not too much. Just you don't need too much really. You just need a little bit like this. So it's dry. Exactly as we do with pencils, you will see that these shavings are easy to get. Then I take some water on a brush, drop in a little bit of water, okay, and these shavings or these scraped parts of the which is exactly the pigment in the pencil, will start to liquefy, become very like, if depending on how much water you add, it becomes nice and fluid, easy to apply. And here we have a nice thick color. So if you want to just test the color, and if you want me to show you the color, let me show it to you. So this is what will happen when you this is my scrap paper. I just want to show you what happens when I'm applying it like watercolor, nice and wet and juicy. You're going to get the best intensity you could ever get from this color. Now to show you the alternative, I'll take the pencil, color it in. This is when I'm coloring in on paper directly. So we know, of course, that the more pigment you put on your paper, the darker it is going to hydrate, or I don't want to say hydrate. I think the word is render. Okay, so it's going to be nice and dark if I have more pigment laid on the paper, which is what I'm doing right now. So I'm going over this area several times to add some pigment here. This is the best case scenario where I have the maximum amount of pigment I can think of adding is already added. Now I take the brush, take a little bit of a damp brush and run it over this. And when I do that, it activates the paint exactly how we saw it getting activated for the last few days. But if you compare, and it is quite dark, but if you compare this with the first one, which is nice, still nice and wet and quite dark, you will notice this is definitely better, right? So today's experiment requires a really bright color, and so I will go in with this option where I'm using the shavings of the pencil color to be wet and then applied like normal watercolor paint. That's what I'm going to do today. So to start off, here's my shade of, it looks like a magenta, so I've taken some magenta out. Now I'm going to take a little bit of the actual purple. I put it on the side here, scrape it off with a little bit of that cutter I was talking about. Let's take a cutter and you'll start seeing you don't need too much. This is very important. You don't need too much. It's quite pigmented, so don't put too much. You can always scrape in more if you want it. Don't waste it. Okay, that's one. And the other is the purplish color, so sorry, the indigo-ish color, which I'm going to mix in as well. So a little bit of that, a few shavings of that. Now while all of this will serve to darken my purple color, I still feel I need a little bit of black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some black as well. You'll notice my black, I need to even sharpen it a little bit by taking off the wood. So if you feel you want to do it gently, do it with the blade, and you will start to keep that wood piece aside, and you can add a little bit, I'll put it here, a little bit of that black, and we don't need too much, just a little to darken the purplish color. So very little, enough. Can you see how little it is? That's it. Okay, let's get on to it. Now that I've got everything, I'll put in a drop onto all these colors because I definitely want everything ready. We don't want to go in with any color not yet prepared, right? So I'm going to just get this color in, which is a nice actual purple. Then I clean my brush and I get this indigo shade ready. Okay, there's indigo there. And finally a little bit of black. There you go. I'm just keeping that black there to darken my um, colors. Okay, so let's start with just look at that color. Even though this is not the darkest, I have I am getting a nice, very vivid shade. See? Oops, a little bit of black got in there. Okay, so not intentional, but a little bit of the black got in. I'm going to just redistribute that black wherever I know that the purple gets dark. So along the edge over here, that's a mistake. That should not happen. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'll take a little more of that purple. Now we have a highlight here and a highlight there. So what I'm going to do is put in this bit. Okay. Bring that down. Start putting in the other highlight. The other highlight is on this side. So let's bring in this purple in from here. Now I'm going on to purple, not the pink, the purple. And at this point I can dip into the black and just make it a nice deep dark purple. See? And again here we have a highlight. We want to leave right, bring in a little more of that color here. Then we can lighten our shade with a little bit of water and just soften this line on both sides. Soften it. I'm letting that pigment blend so that we don't get any harsh edges. Let that light pigment get on the paper and then you can do a little bit of lifting off so that you get that light shade as well. Now I think over here we need some little bit of a darkness. Now my colors are getting over, so I'm going to quickly just dip into this brighter shade, which is indigo. Add in a little bit of indigo along the edges to darken it again. Add a little bit of indigo here too. Now wherever we see shadow, we can, a dark part, not shadow, a dark part of the purple, like at the edges, you can put in a little bit of indigo. Now there's a lot of darkness here at the base, so you can put in a little bit of black there. All this vibrance will come only if we do this method of I'm going to still need to scrape a little more. So if you're watching me, you can see me scraping in a little bit of that pink, the magenta. Oh, better be careful. Oops. I'll just pick that up. Pick that up with my tissue. Okay. and let's go in with the color that we want. So the shavings are going to get activated when I put in water, see, and we can put in a bit of the color here. Add a little bit of shade here, a little bit here. Okay, so we've managed to get the shine, not too bright, not too white, but yet lighter than all the other purple that we have. On to the green. So for the green, you'll notice that in my palette here, I managed to break the tip of my green color, which is sap green color, over here while I was sharpening it. So I managed to catch hold of that tip here. Now in addition to that, I am going to put in a little bit of yellow ochre. Now this is because I think my green is not very sappy, if that's a word. So I'm just going to scrape off a little bit of yellow ochre. By mixing this yellow ochre into my existing sap green, I think I'm going to get a more earthy color. Let's check that out. Wet it and kind of bring it into this green here. Here's my green. See? So if I wet it and just let it mix around, that green is going to come out. See? This is not ideal to have such a big chunk of it, but like I said, since I broke it, I'm going to have to use it. Okay, that's one color. The other color is the dark green, and the dark green is taken from this green. Okay, so this is the darker green. Again, I will scrape a little bit. I should keep this paper under it so that we can see our color better. Yeah, so you can see the color better. I'm scraping a little bit off of that dark green. Obviously it is better if you did not get such big chunks like I did for the light green and got these shavings, because so much easier, right, to play around with this. And for this I'm also going to apply first with the light color, and then you change my brush and apply the dark color. Okay, because I need a thinner application of the darker shade. Okay, let's start. Whoops. This side, left side of the brinjal is a little lighter than the right, so I'm going to put most of this in light green first, then change my brush to a smaller one and go in with the darker color which I have here while it is wet. Now if you notice this color, it's a little like bluish green, and I don't think it makes a very great natural looking green. So what I could do here is I could add a little bit of another shade, a more earthy shade of green, and see whether that will make it better. There's my small brush. Activate that little bit. Let's see if there's any difference. Not much. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, it's dark, but it is not the way I thought it would be. I thought it would be a little, and maybe my application is too dark, which means I can lighten it by adding some water. Okay, yeah, maybe it's a little too dark. So let me water it down a bit. Too much water. Too much. Pick it up. Okay, so we've managed to get some shading onto the top of our brinjal. I don't know if lifting works very well with watercolor paints because the viscosity of the paint itself is so... it is lifting a little. Okay, not bad. Good to know. But very little. Yeah, good enough. I could go in with a little bit of shading here. See, just a wee bit. And a little bit here. Okay. Now, there's a little bit on the top. We'll just add in a little bit of that light purplish color over here. I think there is a little bit of that here. Not too much. And then finally, I want a little bit of gray for some shadow. So what I'm going to do is take a little more of black. My black was here at the corner, so I'm going to just put in a little more black. I'm trying to get gray, so for that I'm just taking a little bit of black, very little. We want a wash consistency, so take that fat brush, clean your brush properly, and let's mix up this little bit of gray here. See, the black, when I touched water to it, it's become gray, but this is still dark, so let's put a little more water there. Now we have a shadow consistency. Oops. Okay. So under this we have a small bit of shadow. Still quite dark, darker than I thought. So erase, wash off your brush and just dampen with this damp brush, just soften that grayish color at the edges. That's it. Hint of a shadow. If you want to darken it, you should be darkening only this end. This end closest to the brinjal. That's it. Finally, if you want definition, you could take a little more of that black. I'm going to just scrape off a little more separately and use your very small brush, size 0, to put just a wee bit of highlights. Okay, so I'm just going to show it to you here. I already have black here, which is very, very light. Now darken that black by adding very little water to it, and just let's consider putting a little bit of a shadow. So over here, if you look at this leaf, a very thin black shadow is good, just a thin bit. And where else? We have a shadow here. In fact, the shadow here is falling onto the brinjal itself. See, slight darkness onto the brinjal, and this part here also has a slight shadow. Does this have a shadow? Yeah, little bit, wee bit. See, so these kind of small shadows are they really go a long way. Now I don't want to add the same kind of black to the rest of it, so I'll take a light version of that black, put it into the pink, yeah, and just gently run it along the edge here. Soften it. Same way on the other side. Over here, just darken this portion. This is the part that is closest to the edge. Yeah. You could add a few lines just to create some sort of texture. If you're careful with the intensity of your paint, you may not, these will dry light and you may not have too much of too many very stark looking lines. Just a few lines like this, light lines, and that's it. That's our brinjal, and this was the application of the colors this way, where we painted it today without any actually using the pencil color to color onto the paper, directly onto the paper, but rather taking shavings of that lead or the pigment and then working with it like normal, using it like normal watercolor. So let's mark this as day 7 of 30. Our brinjal is complete. So thanks for joining in. I will see you tomorrow, hopefully, with another reference photo, another fruit or vegetable or food item, and we'll see which method, which technique of painting to employ depending on what we are painting tomorrow. All right, everyone. Bye. See you.